Hi, welcome back to Joe Blogs. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the 1812 war between the USA and the United Kingdom. Now, the reason that I'm making a special introduction for today's video is that this video forms part of a new experiment that I'm running on the channel. I've been looking for ways to develop the channel and to create more content. And I think delving into the history books is a really interesting thing to do. So have a look at today's video to get a feel for the format. And if you think this is something you'd like to be involved in, then drop me an email at the email that's listed on my About page. So anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed seeing me again, the Joe Blog sign, one of the statues, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video.
The War of 1812 is unique in that it is looked at in two very different ways by the two main belligerents. In America, the War of 1812 is often looked upon fondly, largely down to the American victory at New Orleans in 1815. However, in the United Kingdom it is either not remembered at all, or if it is remembered as anything else other than a footnote in the Napoleonic Wars, is remembered as the time the British burned down the White House. In today's video, we'll try to present a balanced look at the war, and see what side's versions of events are closest to the reality. To achieve this, we'll look at the causes and the context of the war, the first years of the war at sea, the last years of the war, and the consequences for both sides. Chapter 1. Causes and context of the war. The War of 1812, fought between the United States and the United Kingdom, was a significant conflict that shaped the course of both nations' histories. This clash of titans emerged from a complex web of long-term and short-term causes, rooted in territorial disputes, economic interests, maritime tensions, and the political atmosphere of the early 19th century. The two main belligerents, the United States and the United Kingdom, had contrasting motivations for the war. The United States was a young and ambitious nation, and it sought to assert its sovereignty and protect its economic interests. Since its independence in 1776, the United States had been striving to expand westwards, and this expansion brought it into direct conflict with the British, who still held several strategic areas along the western frontier. Moreover, Britain's policy of impressment, the forced conscription of American sailors into the Royal Navy, further fueled American resentment towards the United Kingdom. On the other hand, the United Kingdom, as a global superpower, was preoccupied with its ongoing struggle against Napoleon's France. The United Kingdom sought to maintain its naval supremacy and prevent any potential alliance between the United States and France that could threaten its security. By supporting Native American tribes in the frontier regions, the British aimed to maintain a buffer zone between American expansion and British territories. Some of the long-term causes of the War of 1812 were deeply rooted in the historical tensions between the two nations. The aftermath of the American Revolution left many unresolved issues between the United States and Britain, including disputed territorial boundaries, trade restrictions, and lingering animosity. The British refusal to evacuate their forts in the American northwest frontier exacerbated these tensions. Furthermore, the doctrine of manifest destiny drove American expansionism, and the desire to control the Great Lakes region in Canada played a significant role in shaping the United States' aggressive stance towards the United Kingdom. In the short term, the war was precipitated by a series of events and incidents that heightened hostilities. In 1807, the British ship HMS Leopard attacked the American frigate USS Chesapeake, impressing several American sailors. This act of aggression sparked outrage in the United States, further deteriorating Anglo-American relations. The United States government under President James Madison increasingly felt the pressure from war hawks, a group of young nationalist congressmen who advocated for military action against Britain to protect American honour and sovereignty. In the broader context of world politics, the War of 1812 occurred during a tense period characterised by great power rivalries and shifting alliances. The Napoleonic Wars in Europe were shaping the global landscape, and both the United States and the United Kingdom sought to assert their dominance amidst the chaos. The war's impending clash reflected the might of the two growing powers about to collide, akin to a romantic tale of valour and heroism. Chapter 2. The first years of the war. The first 2 years of the War of 1812, spanning from 1812 to 1813, were marked by a series of significant battles and key events that shaped the course of the conflict in various theatres. In the Niagara Theatre, the United States launched an invasion of Upper Canada with the aim of capturing British territory. In October 1812, the Americans scored a victory at the Battle of Queenston Heights, but it was short-lived as British forces, along with their Native American allies, counterattacked and forced the Americans to retreat. This back and forth continued throughout 1813, with both sides gaining minor victories but failing to achieve decisive results. The Great Lakes Theatre also witnessed intense fighting between the United States and the United Kingdom. The United States Navy managed to gain control of Lake Erie, a significant achievement that allowed them to transport troops and supplies more effectively. In September 1813, US Commodore Oliver Hazard Perry defeated the British fleet at the Battle of Lake Erie, leading to a British retreat from the Detroit region. This victory opened the door for General William Henry Harrison's successful campaign to recapture Detroit and secure American control over the region. In the Western Theatre, Native American tribes backed by the British fiercely resisted American expansion. The Shawnee leader Tecumseh, along with his brother Tenskwatawa, also known as the Prophet, played a crucial role in rallying the tribes against the United States. At the Battle of Tippecanoe in November 1811, US forces led by General Harrison defeated Tecumseh's Confederacy, but the seeds of resentment and resistance remained. In 1813, Tecumseh joined British forces and played a pivotal role in the British capture of Fort Detroit. However, his death during the Battle of the Thames in October 1813 dealt a severe blow to the Native American alliance, weakening their resolve and their impact on the conflict. In the Chesapeake Theatre, British forces conducted raids and expeditions, capturing strategic locations and creating unrest in the region. In October 1813, the British captured Washington, D.C., and burned several public buildings, including the White House and the Capitol. However, American resistance stiffened, and at the Battle of Baltimore in September 1814, the British were repelled, preventing them from taking control of the city. The war was also extended to the Atlantic coast, where privateers from both sides engaged in fierce naval battles. Privateering, a form of legitimised piracy, allowed private individuals to seize enemy vessels and cargo. These actions resulted in significant financial losses for both the United States and the United Kingdom, but neither side once again gained a decisive advantage. Overall, the first 2 years of the War of 1812 saw a series of engagements that highlighted the fierce determination of both the American and British forces. While there was minor victories and defeats on both sides, neither was able to secure a clear advantage. The war remained in a state of flux, with neither side achieving its objectives or making significant territorial gains. The conflict continued to be characterised by strategic stalemates and intermittent clashes, as both nations grappled for dominance and sought to defend their interests in North America. As the war progressed into 1813, the initial enthusiasm and hope for quick victories began to wane. The reality of a protracted and challenging conflict became apparent to both sides. From the American perspective, the war was seen as a test of the nation's resilience and ability to defend its sovereignty against a formidable adversary. For the British, it was a part of their broader struggle against Napoleon's France, and a means of safeguarding their interest in the New World. In conclusion, the first 2 years of the War of 1812 were characterised by a series of battles and events that demonstrated the determination and fighting spirit of both the United States and the United Kingdom. Despite some minor victories and territorial gains, the war remained largely inconclusive during this period. Both sides grappled with the challenges of waging war in the diverse theatres of North America, and the conflict's progression continued to unfold amid the backdrop of a tense and uncertain geopolitical landscape. Chapter 3: The War at Sea. The War of 1812 at sea was a crucial aspect of the conflict between the United States and the United Kingdom, as both sides strived to assert their naval dominance and protect their maritime interests. The war at sea was characterised by a series of major battles and key events that shaped the course of the conflict. One of the early significant naval engagements was the USS Constitution's victory over HMS Geary in August 1812. This battle demonstrated the capabilities of American naval prowess as the Constitution, nicknamed Old Ironside due to its sturdy oak construction, outgunned and defeated the British frigate. This victory bolstered American morale and garnered international attention. In October 1812, another naval victory for the United States occurred when the USS United States captured the HMS Macedonian. This battle highlighted the growing proficiency of the American Navy and its ability to take on powerful British warships. However, the British were quick to respond, and in December 1812 the HMS Java captured the USS Constitution, temporarily reversing the tide in favour of the Royal Navy. The year 1813 saw continued naval skirmishes, with neither side achieving a decisive advantage. The most notable encounter was the Battle of Lake Erie in September 1813. Led by Commodore Oliver Hazard Perry, the United States fleet decisively defeated the British fleet under Captain Robert Barclay, securing American control over Lake Erie and allowing General William Henry Harrison's successful campaign to retake Detroit. In the following year, 1814, the British began to increase their naval presence in the North American waters, blockading key American ports and disrupting maritime trade. However, the United States Navy's efforts were not to be underestimated. In February 1814, the USS Constitution engaged and captured the HMS Cyane and HMS Levant in a single encounter, displaying its remarkable capabilities once again. The climax of the war at sea came in February 1815 with the famous Battle of New Orleans. While technically occurring after the signing of the peace treaty, the Treaty of Ghent, the battle highlighted the importance of naval power in securing strategic victories. The British attempted to launch a land-sea assault on New Orleans, but the American defences, including the naval forces under Commodore Daniel Patterson, effectively thwarted their efforts. The British fleet's failure to overcome the American defences led to the eventual withdrawal of the entire British expedition, marking a significant turning point in the war at sea. Throughout the war, both sides experienced successes and challenges on the high seas. The American Navy demonstrated its capabilities in single-ship actions and proved that it could compete with one of the world's preeminent naval powers. The British meanwhile maintained their dominance in other areas and utilised their naval strength to blockade American ports and disrupt trade. The war at sea showcased the strategic importance of naval power and the significant impact it could have on the overall conflict. In conclusion, the War of 1812 at sea was a dynamic and critical aspect of the broader conflict between the United States and the United Kingdom. The naval engagement showcased the strength and resilience of both navies and had a profound impact on the war's progression. The US Navy's successes boosted American morale and demonstrated their nation's ability to defend its maritime interests, whereas the British, on the other hand, leveraged their naval superiority to impose blockades and disrupt American trade. The war at sea was a testament to the strategic significance of naval power and its influence on the outcome of the conflict. Chapter 4: The Last Years of the War. The last 2 years of the War of 1812, spanning from 1814 to 1815, were characterised by a series of critical battles and key events that significantly influenced the outcomes of the conflict in various theatres. In the Chesapeake Theatre, one of the major events was the burning of the White House by British forces in August 1814. After the defeat at the Battle of Blandenberg, British troops marched into Washington, D.C. and set fire to the White House and other government buildings as a symbolic act of revenge for the early American attacks on York, or modern-day Toronto. The burning of the White House marked a low point for the United States and highlighted the vulnerability of the capital to enemy invasion. Following their success in Washington, the British turned their attention to Baltimore, another major American port city. The Battle of Baltimore in September 1814 was a pivotal engagement, with American forces successfully defending the city against a British assault. Fort McHenry, guarding the entrance to Baltimore's harbour, withstood a prolonged naval bombardment, inspiring Francis Scott Key to write The Star-Spangled Banner, which later became the United States national anthem. The British withdrawal from Baltimore marked a turning point in the Chesapeake Theatre, as American morale was boosted and the threat of further British advances in the region diminished. In the Niagara Theatre, the Battle of Lundy's Lane in July 1814 was a crucial confrontation that showcased the tenacity and resilience of both American and British forces. The battle was fiercely contested, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. Although the outcome was inconclusive, the American forces managed to hold their ground, preventing the British from gaining significant territorial advantages. In the Gulf Coast Theatre, the Battle of New Orleans in July 1815 was a major event that would become one of the most celebrated American victories of the war. Led by General Andrew Jackson, the American forces repelled a British assault on New Orleans with remarkable efficiency. The British suffered devastating losses, while the Americans held their positions with great determination. The Battle of New Orleans, though technically fought after the peace treaty had been signed, became a symbol of American resilience and bolstered the nation's pride. As the war progressed into 1815, the overall trend saw a decrease in major engagements and hostilities as the peace treaty took effect. Both sides had achieved some successes and faced significant setbacks, but the war had ultimately proven to be largely indecisive in terms of territorial gains and strategic advantages. The burning of the White House had been a significant blow to American morale, while the subsequent successful defence of Baltimore and the victory at New Orleans contributed to a renewed sense of national pride. For the British, the war was a part of the broader global conflict with Napoleon's France, and while they had achieved some victories in the early stages, the resilience of the American forces in the later years had also impressed them. The burning of the White House and the Battle of New Orleans were two major events that left lasting impressions on both sides. While the war was officially over with the signing of the Treaty of Ghent, these last 2 years of the conflict demonstrated the strength and determination of the American forces and the challenges faced by the British in the attempt to control territories in North America. The War of 1812 had showcased the resolve of both of the two nations, and its conclusion marked the beginning of a new chapter in their respective histories. Chapter 5: The Consequences of the War. The end of the War of 1812 was marked by the signing of the Treaty of Ghent on December 24, 1814. Negotiations between the United States and the United Kingdom had begun in August 1814, and the treaty was finalised after several months of discussions. The treaty, often described as status quo ante bellum agreement, essentially restored the pre-war borders and conditions between the two nations. No territorial gains or losses were made by either side, and all prisoners of war were to be released. The treaty was ratified by both parties and took effect in February 1815. The Treaty of Ghent had, as you could imagine, both short-term and long-term consequences. In the short term, it obviously brought an end to hostilities and secured peace between the United States and the United Kingdom. After years of fighting, the war-weary nations welcomed the ceasing of hostilities. However, the immediate impact of the treaty was overshadowed by the Battle of New Orleans, fought after the treaty's signing but before news of the agreement reached America. The American victory in New Orleans, although technically inconsequential to the war's outcome, boosted national pride and solidified the perception of American resilience. In the long term, the Treaty of Ghent ushered in an era of improved relations between the United States and the United Kingdom. The grievances that had led to the war were not entirely addressed in the treaty, but the lack of major territorial gains or losses allowed both sides to avoid further conflicts. Over time, the two nations developed a more cooperative relationship and pursued mutual economic interests. The war, however, did have significant human costs. Although specific casualty figures for the war were not thoroughly recorded, estimates suggest that around 15,000 Americans and 10,000 British soldiers lost their lives during the conflict. Additionally, thousands of Native Americans lost their lives or were displaced as a result of the war. The conflict further weakened Native American resistance and territorial claims, allowing the United States to push further westwards in the years that followed. The impact of the war in 1812 on the United States was complex. On the one hand, the war boosted American nationalism and pride, having successfully defended its sovereignty against a formidable adversary. However, the war also revealed shortcomings in military preparedness and exposed divisions between different regions and political factions within the country. For the United Kingdom, the war was seen as a distraction from the larger conflict against Napoleon's France. As previously mentioned, despite some initial victories, the costly and inconclusive nature of the war led the British to reconsider their approach towards the United States. The United Kingdom also had concerns about the rise of American power and a potential threat it posed to British interests in the New World. From the Native American perspective, the war had devastating consequences. The Native American tribes who had allied with the British were left vulnerable to American expansion and further encroachment on their lands. The war weakened Native American resistance and allowed the United States government to push forward with its policies of westward expansion. So there you have it. We've now looked at how both sides viewed the war and the actual conduct of the war itself in great detail, and as a result I think it's time to make a final judgment. The historical consensus is, as previously mentioned, the war ended in a stalemate. However, I'm of the opinion that the British just edged it. And I'll tell you why. How can a country burn down the residence of another side's head of state and it not be viewed as a victory? And that's not even considering that the Americans' proudest victory happened after the signing of the peace treaty. Maybe that's my bias talking. In fact, it almost definitely is. If you have a different view, then feel free to debate it in the comments. If you enjoyed today's look at the War of 1812, then please like and subscribe, but remember to hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. But most importantly, I hope you all have a great day.